You are sitting across from someone you love, truly love. Their presence is familiar, almost sacred. Their laughter has been the soundtrack to your happiest moments. Their silence, the weight you've carried in your darkest hours. And yet, somewhere within you, a quiet tremor begins to form, a whisper that says, "What if I ruin this?" Not because you want to, not because they deserve it, but because a strange, inexplicable force inside you hungers for destruction. A cruel urge, subtle at first, then sharper, an impulse to say the wrong word, to push them away, to test their patience until their affection fractures. Why? Why does the human heart, so desperate for love, for connection, so often turn against the very thing it craves most? This paradox is not new. Dostoyevsky lived inside it, wrote it into every trembling page of his novels. He understood with frightening clarity that human beings are not merely creatures of reason, nor are we beings that seek happiness as the highest good. No, beneath our polished surfaces and carefully rehearsed smiles lies something far more troubling: the possibility that we are drawn to our own undoing. You've seen this in yourself, haven't you? That inexplicable pull towards sabotaging the job you worked years to get. The relationship you thought was unbreakable. The dream you swore you wanted more than anything. A careless remark, a missed opportunity, a reckless choice. You watch yourself destroy what you once believed you could never live without. And when the dust settles, the haunting question remains: was it really an accident? Or did I, in some secret chamber of my soul, want this all along? This question is not confined to Dostoyevsky's pages. You know it in your bones. Think of the moments you pushed someone away precisely when they drew closest. Think of the words you said that you cannot unsay. Think of the dreams you abandoned, not because they were impossible, but because something in you recoiled at the weight of fulfillment. Is it fear? Perhaps. The fear that love will expose us, demand too much, or reveal the ugliness we hide from the world. Is it pride? The desire to prove that we are sovereign, that nothing, not even love, can bind us completely? Or is it something darker, an instinct so deeply embedded in the human psyche that we destroy what we love because we cannot bear to be at the mercy of its power? You've been told all your life that love is the ultimate salvation, the cure for loneliness, the balm for suffering. Yet Dostoyevsky whispers another truth. Love is also dangerous. To love is to risk annihilation. To open yourself is to hand another person the weapon that could shatter you. And so, in a desperate attempt to preserve control, many destroy the very thing that could have saved them. But here's the deeper paradox. Even in destroying what we love, we find a kind of perverse satisfaction. A dark pleasure in watching the collapse, in confirming our secret belief that we are unworthy of joy, unfit for peace. It is as though we would rather inhabit the familiar pain of ruin than risk the terrifying possibility of enduring happiness. Ask yourself, which is worse? To lose what you love by chance, or to lose it by your own hand? Which wound cuts deeper? Betrayal by the world, or betrayal by yourself? The great question lingers, haunting, relentless. Why do we destroy what we love? And if Dostoyevsky is right, if this tendency is not a rare accident, but an echo of something buried in the human soul, then we are all walking on fragile ground. Every embrace could be a farewell disguised as tenderness. Every promise could be a prelude to betrayal. Every declaration of love could contain, in its shadow, the seed of its own destruction. This is where the journey begins. Not with answers, but with an abyss. And if you dare to stare into it, you may glimpse something both terrifying and liberating. The truth that the enemy you fear most has always lived inside your own heart. But where does this destructive force come from? What hidden roots feed it, unseen, beneath the surface of the psyche? That is where we must go next. Imagine peeling back the layers of your own mind. Not the polite, curated self you show at work or in friendships, but the darker self you barely admit exists. That secret impulse that wants not peace but conflict, not stability but chaos. You tell yourself you want love, but beneath it all there is something else. A craving to test love, to strain it until it breaks, as though only then can you prove it was ever real. Dostoyevsky did not flinch before this truth. He saw what most of us avoid, that destruction is not always an external accident, but an internal compulsion. Why? Because deep down, the human psyche is not built for serenity. It is built for struggle. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the disowned part of ourselves that contains every trait we suppress, every impulse we deem unacceptable. We like to imagine ourselves as rational, kind, loving creatures. Yet the shadow whispers otherwise. You are jealous, you are cruel, you are selfish, you are weak. When these whispers go unheard, they find expression through sabotage. You ruin what you love, not consciously, but because the shadow refuses to be silenced forever. Think of his character, Raskolnikov, in Crime and Punishment. He loves his mother and sister deeply, yet drags their lives into misery through his crime. Think of Dmitri in The Brothers Karamazov, who adores Grushenka, yet cannot stop lashing out, gambling, and sabotaging their bond. These men are not caricatures. They are mirrors. Dostoyevsky shows us what we prefer to ignore. Love is not a gentle fire that warms, but a volatile one that burns, destroys, and renews. Modern psychology echoes this with its studies of self-sabotage. People procrastinate precisely on the tasks they value most. They undermine relationships precisely when they care most deeply. Why? Because the closer we approach something of true importance, the more our unconscious fears rise. Fear of losing it, fear of being unworthy, fear of being changed by it. It is easier, in some twisted way, to destroy it ourselves than to wait for fate to take it from us. And so the paradox emerges. Destruction is not always hatred, but a warped expression of love. We ruin what we love because we are terrified of its power over us. We destroy what we cherish because we fear our own dependency. We sabotage the good because its permanence would demand we confront our unworthiness. This is the hidden root. The human heart is not a temple of peace, but a battlefield of contradictions. Jung's shadow gnaws at us. Nietzsche's will to power strains within us. Schopenhauer's blind will manipulates us. Sartre's paradox of freedom entangles us. Love, under this weight, becomes both salvation and doom. Imagine standing at the edge of a burning house. Inside are all the things you love, the person who believes in you, the dreams you swore you would protect, the values you claimed were sacred. For years you've watched the fire grow, from sparks of neglect, from embers of pride, from the kindling of fear. And suddenly you realize, you were the one holding the match. What do you do now? Most people would collapse into despair, convinced it's too late. But Dostoyevsky offers another path, not the naive optimism of pretending the fire was never lit, but the radical rebellion of facing it head-on. To break free from the compulsion to destroy what we love, we must first commit a crime against ourselves. We must betray the very habits, fears, and illusions that have kept us bound. The rebellion begins with a paradox. To preserve love, you must first confront your hatred of it. Carl Jung insisted that the shadow must not be denied, but integrated. To say, I am not jealous, not cruel, not selfish, is to lie, and in lying, you give the shadow more power. To rebel, you must say, yes, I am jealous. Yes, I am capable of cruelty. Yes, I am selfish, and yet I choose differently. This is not denial, it is ownership, for only in ownership can choice be born. Think of Dostoyevsky's character, Prince Mishkin in The Idiot. Surrounded by corruption, deceit, and cynicism, he refuses to let the darkness dictate his actions. He does not deny the world's cruelty, but he also does not surrender to it. His rebellion is radical simplicity, to love without calculation, even when it seems foolish. In a world that destroys love, to persist in loving is the most dangerous act of all. But rebellion is not only personal, it is psychological warfare against your own instincts. The brain, wired for negativity, must be retrained. The hedonic treadmill must be slowed. This requires deliberate practice, to pause when the impulse to sabotage arises, to notice the urge before it becomes action. Neuroscientists call this metacognition, the ability to think about your thinking. Dostoyevsky dramatized it through characters who narrate their self-destruction in real time, showing us the absurdity of their own compulsions. To observe your shadow is the first act of freedom. Imagine standing before a shattered mirror. Every piece reflects a fragment of your face. One shard shows your smile, another your rage, another your despair. You bend down, bleeding fingers trembling, and gather the pieces. As you do, a realization dawns. The mirror never broke because it was weak. It broke because it was struck by the very hands desperate to see themselves whole. This is the human condition. We destroy what we love not only out of fear, or pride, or confusion, but because love itself exposes us. It reveals the fracture lines within us, the parts we would rather hide, the shadows we cannot bear to face. And in that unbearable clarity, we choose to shatter the mirror rather than confront what it reflects. Dostoyevsky's ultimate truth is this: we are not merely victims of fate, nor purely rational beings, nor noble seekers of happiness. We are creatures torn apart by contradiction. To love is to confront those contradictions, to stand in the tension without escape. Destruction becomes tempting because it offers a false resolution. If the love is gone, the tension disappears. But in destroying what we love, we destroy the very mirror that could have shown us who we are. Think of it. When you lash out at someone you love, is it truly them you hate? Or is it the part of yourself they awaken? When you abandon your dreams, is it the dream you fear, or the person you would become if you actually achieved it? When you sabotage what matters, is it because it was unworthy, or because it was too worthy, and therefore terrifying? The final realization is as liberating as it is devastating. We do not destroy what we love. We destroy ourselves through what we love. Carl Jung hinted at this when he said, "The meeting with oneself is the first test of courage." Love forces that meeting. It brings the unconscious into the light. It makes the shadow visible. And for many, that confrontation is unbearable. They would rather annihilate the love than face the revelation of who they are. Nietzsche, in his own defiant way, declared that one must learn to love one's fate, amor fati. To embrace not only joy, but also pain, not only creation, but destruction. The ultimate truth is that love demands this same courage, to embrace not only the beauty it offers, but also the chaos it reveals within you. To say yes not only to the comfort, but also to the terror of intimacy. Schopenhauer believed life was suffering, and love a trick of the will. But Dostoyevsky pushed further. Suffering itself, when embraced, becomes the crucible of meaning. We destroy what we love when we cannot endure suffering. We save what we love when we allow suffering to transfigure us. In other words, love is not meant to rescue us from pain. It is meant to show us the purpose of pain. Jean-Paul Sartre's paradox of freedom and possession finds its answer here too. The truth is that love cannot be possessed, nor can freedom be absolute. The final realization is not to solve the paradox, but to live within it. To love someone is to release them daily, even as you hold them close. To love a dream is to accept the risk of failure, even as you strive for success. To love life is to know it will one day end, and to say yes anyway. And here lies the poetic irony. The very impulse that tempts us to destroy what we love is also the path to our deepest awakening. Each act of sabotage is a signal flare from the unconscious, screaming, "Look here. This is where you are afraid. This is where you are wounded. This is where you must grow." The final truth is not to escape this compulsion, but to transform it, to see in every destructive urge the opportunity for greater self-knowledge. Consider Dostoyevsky's own life. Condemned to death, he stood before the firing squad, certain his end had come. At the last moment, his sentence was commuted to labor in Siberia. That brush with destruction became the defining moment of his existence. He later wrote that he was reborn in that instant, that life itself became infinitely precious. What does this teach us? That destruction is not merely loss. It can also be revelation. It can tear away illusions and force us to see with unbearable clarity what truly matters. So the final, most powerful realization is this: we destroy what we love because love is the most dangerous force in existence. It unmasks us. It dissolves our defenses. It demands we confront ourselves. And unless we have the courage to face that truth, destruction becomes our escape. But if we dare to face it, if we choose to hold the mirror steady, even as it shakes in our hands, then love ceases to be a fragile flame, constantly threatened by our sabotage. It becomes a fire that transforms us, burning away the false, the cowardly, the hidden. Imagine what that means for you. Every time you are tempted to sabotage, you are standing at a threshold. On one side, the familiar cycle of ruin. On the other, the terrifying, luminous possibility of transformation. To choose love in that moment is not weakness. It is the greatest act of courage. So the mirror stands before you once more. Will you strike it and watch the shards scatter? Or will you hold it, trembling, bleeding, but unbroken, and finally meet the face staring back at you? That is the question Dostoyevsky leaves us with. Not one of despair, but of responsibility. For in the end, the truth is not that we are doomed to destroy what we love. The truth is that we are given the choice, again and again, to let love destroy us, and in that destruction, to be remade. The words are finished, but the echo remains. If you walk away from this with unease in your chest, with questions burning behind your ribs, then you have touched what Dostoyevsky meant. Now the work is yours, not to theorize, but to decide.